Steelers Nation, it doesn't matter how many wins come, how many banners are hanging, or the weight of history this franchise carries, there's one topic that keeps coming back to the center of everything surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers today. Even after capturing the AFC North for the first time in 5 years and earning a home playoff game, the conversation has shifted once again. It shifted to Mike Tomlin. It shifted to the future. It shifted to a debate that divides, provokes, and hits the core of everyone who lives and breathes black and gold. A new report, attributed to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, reignited a possibility that was enough to set the entire Steelers Nation on fire. And the truth is simple. When you strip away the noise, the exaggeration, and the easy headlines, the real situation is far deeper, more strategic, and far more decisive for what lies ahead. This isn't just another video. It's about identity, continuity, pressure to win, and the exact moment when history collides with the present. If you feel that weight, if you live this discussion, let it echo in the comments, because this conversation defines the now and the future of the Steelers. And if you bleed black and gold, smash that like button, support the channel, and roll with me, because the truth starts now. Here we go, Steelers. According to the report, there is no hard evidence that Mike Tomlin is preparing to step away. The wording itself matters. It acknowledges his long-standing loyalty to the Steelers while suggesting that someone close to him believes leaving is at least a possibility. That is a far cry from an indication of intent, and it stands in contrast to other reporting that points in the opposite direction. Tom Pelissero, speaking recently, made it clear that there are no signs behind the scenes that Tomlin is even thinking about walking away. This contradiction is important because it highlights the space where speculation thrives, the absence of concrete information. Tomlin's name drives attention every time it's connected to uncertainty, and that reality often fuels narratives that extend well beyond what the facts can support. If you listen to Mike Tomlin himself, his words consistently paint the picture of a coach deeply entrenched in the present, not one distracted by future exits. He has openly addressed the constant rumors that swirl around his name, whether they involve college football, television, or another NFL job. His stance has been remarkably steady. He has said plainly that he does not participate in leaking his future intentions and that speculation is simply part of the territory that comes with being an NFL head coach. Tomlin has framed his role as something larger than a job, describing himself as institutionalized, someone who lives for the weekly challenges and the growth that comes from coaching. Those are not the words of someone mentally preparing to walk away. The television angle, in particular, continues to resurface despite Tomlin repeatedly shutting it down. He has acknowledged respect for the media and its role in connecting fans to the game, but he has also been clear that it is not where his passion lies. He has said more than once that he prefers to get his nails dirty, to stay directly involved in coaching rather than evaluating others from a studio. This consistency matters. Over the years, Tomlin's public comments on this subject have never wavered, and that track record gives weight to his denials. If he were truly positioning himself for a transition to media, his language would almost certainly leave more room for that possibility. Instead, he closes the door each time it's opened. There is also the broader context of the Steelers organization itself. Few coaching jobs in professional sports offer the stability that Pittsburgh does. The franchise has not fired a head coach in the Super Bowl era, and Tomlin has often spoken about his appreciation for that steadiness and for the historical standard attached to the role. Ownership stability, a long-standing relationship with Art Rooney, and a roster built to compete right now all point toward continuity rather than upheaval. Tomlin's family life is rooted in Pittsburgh as well, with personal and professional ties that further anchor him to the city. These factors do not guarantee permanence, but they do make the idea of an imminent departure far less logical. From a football standpoint, the timing of these rumors feels especially disconnected from reality. The Steelers are firmly in a win-now mode, with veteran leadership and a roster constructed to make a push. There is an understanding that future seasons may bring different challenges, but the present moment demands focus. Tomlin himself has emphasized that he mirrors the urgency of his players, recognizing how short NFL careers are and believing it would be disrespectful to lead them without that same intensity. By his own admission, he rarely allows himself to zoom out and appreciate longevity because his attention is consumed by what his team needs right now, this week, this season. At the same time, there are tangible, immediate storylines unfolding on the field that underscore how engaged this team remains. One of them involves Deshaun Elliott, whose presence has been sorely missed since his knee injury earlier in the season. Elliott recently hinted on social media that his story this year might not be over, posting a message that suggested a continuation rather than an ending. That single post was enough to spark cautious optimism that his practice window could open soon, a necessary step before any return from injured reserve. While nothing has been confirmed, the mere possibility adds another layer of intrigue to the Steelers' playoff path. Elliott's potential return is not just a feel-good narrative, it carries real implications for the defensive structure. He has been a high-impact player, and his absence forced adjustments that the team has managed, but not without strain. If the Steelers were to advance deep enough into the playoffs, the idea of Elliott rejoining the lineup becomes more realistic, especially with extra recovery time built into the postseason calendar. Any such return would require careful decision-making about personnel usage, balancing chemistry, health, and performance. It's another example of how this season remains very much alive, with questions that are rooted in competition rather than conjecture. When you put all of this together, the contrast becomes clear. On one side, you have speculative reports built around possibilities and unnamed sources. On the other, you have a head coach whose words, actions, and environment consistently point toward commitment and focus on the task at hand. You also have a team preparing for playoff football, dealing with real roster decisions, real injuries, and real opportunities. The idea that Mike Tomlin is spending his time plotting an exit simply does not align with the evidence available right now. This is why it's so important for Steelers fans to separate discussion from distraction. The future will always be uncertain in the NFL, and never say never applies to every coach and player. But uncertainty alone is not a story. What matters is what is happening now, what has been said directly, and what has been shown through behavior over time. As things stand, Mike Tomlin looks like a coach who remains deeply invested in leading the Pittsburgh Steelers, and a team that is fully engaged in chasing something meaningful this season. If you stay grounded in what is actually unfolding inside the building, the picture becomes even clearer as you move past the surface-level rumors and focus on the football implications tied to continuity. Mike Tomlin's mindset, as he has explained it himself, is rooted in urgency and respect for the locker room. He has made it clear that he refuses to coach with one eye on the future and one foot out the door. In his view, that kind of thinking disrespects players whose careers are measured in years, sometimes months, not decades. That philosophy matters because it directly influences how this team prepares, practices, and competes, especially in January. Tomlin has described himself as tunnel-visioned, and that word choice is important. It means his attention is locked on today's problems, today's adjustments, and this week's opponent. That approach has been consistent throughout his tenure in Pittsburgh and is one of the reasons players continue to respond to him. When a head coach speaks openly about mirroring the urgency of his roster, it reinforces trust. It tells veterans and young players alike that their time matters, that the man leading them is fully present. That is not the behavior of someone mentally transitioning to another chapter of his life. This is also where the stability of the Steelers organization plays a critical role in shaping the reality of the situation. Pittsburgh is not a franchise that thrives on chaos or constant reinvention at the top. The identity of the team has always been tied to patience, structure, and internal belief. Tomlin fits that mold perfectly. He understands what it means to be part of an institution that values continuity, and he has openly said that he appreciates the work environment he has been part of for nearly 2 decades. That appreciation is not abstract. It shows up in how he talks about ownership, history, and responsibility. When you factor in the roster context, the idea of Tomlin walking away becomes even harder to justify. This team is built to compete right now, not to drift into a transitional limbo. Veteran leaders are still driving the culture, and the window to push for meaningful postseason success is open. There is a sense that every season matters, but some seasons carry extra weight because of where the roster is positioned. Tomlin knows that. He has always embraced the challenge of maximizing what is in front of him rather than waiting for a perfect future scenario. At the same time, the Steelers are navigating real, tangible decisions that underline how focused they remain on the present. Deshaun Elliott's situation is a prime example. His knee injury was significant, and no one is pretending that a return would be simple or guaranteed. But the fact that his name is even part of the conversation again speaks volumes about where the team is headed. Elliott has been around the building, preparing, staying engaged, and his subtle hint that his season might not be over has injected a layer of hope into the defensive outlook. If Elliott does manage to open his practice window and eventually return, it would force meaningful choices in the secondary. The Steelers have options, but not all options are equal. The defense has relied on different combinations to stay afloat, and while there have been positive stretches, there have also been moments of inconsistency. Elliott brings physicality, communication, and a presence that changes how offenses approach the middle of the field. His return would not just be symbolic, it would be strategic. Any decision to reintroduce him would have to balance rhythm and reliability. You do not disrupt a functioning unit lightly, especially in the playoffs. But at the same time, championship runs are often defined by players who come back at the right moment and elevate the group. That is why this storyline matters. It is not about sentiment. It is about whether the Steelers can add another layer to their defense when margins become razor thin. All of this circles back to the larger theme that defines this moment in Pittsburgh. The Steelers are not operating like a team preparing for a leadership reset. They are operating like a team locked into competition mode, with a head coach who is deeply embedded in every decision and every rep. The rumors about Tomlin may generate clicks, but they do not align with the day-to-day reality that has been described by those closest to the situation and by Tomlin himself. Speculation will always exist, especially when a coach has been in one place for as long as Tomlin has been in Pittsburgh. Fans get restless, media narratives evolve, and the idea of change becomes an easy talking point. But longevity alone does not equal dissatisfaction, and silence about the future does not equal planning an exit. In Tomlin's case, the most consistent signal has been his commitment to the work, to the players, and to the standard that comes with wearing the Steelers logo. As this postseason unfolds, the focus will inevitably shift back to results on the field, where it belongs. How far this team goes, how the defense holds up, and whether reinforcements like Deshaun Elliott can factor into the equation will shape the story far more than any anonymous quote. And through it all, Mike Tomlin will be doing what he has always done, coaching the Pittsburgh Steelers with intensity, urgency, and pride. What keeps this conversation alive is the emotional split inside the fan base itself. There are Steelers fans who see stability as a competitive advantage, something most franchises spend decades chasing, and there are others who feel that longevity naturally invites scrutiny, especially when championships are the measuring stick. That tension is real, and it's part of why Mike Tomlin's name always sits at the center of these discussions. But it's also why it's important to separate frustration from facts. Tomlin's tenure has not been defined by complacency, even if the ultimate postseason results have fallen short of expectations in recent years. Inside the locker room, Tomlin's influence remains strong. Players consistently respond to his message because it hasn't changed with the wind. He demands accountability, but he also provides clarity. That combination is rare in today's NFL, where coaching turnover often resets culture every 2 or 3 seasons. The Steelers have avoided that cycle, and whether fans agree with every decision or not, that consistency has kept the team competitive year after year. It's not accidental, it's structural. This is where the timing of the current rumors feels especially disconnected. A coach who is supposedly considering leaving does not speak the way Tomlin has spoken recently. He does not frame his role around service to players. He does not talk about urgency as a moral obligation, and he certainly does not describe himself as someone who avoids thinking about the long term because the present demands too much attention. Those are not the words of someone emotionally detaching. Those are the words of someone deeply invested. As the postseason progresses, the spotlight will naturally tighten. Every decision will be magnified, every adjustment dissected. That's where Tomlin has always lived comfortably. Pressure is not new to him, and neither is criticism. He has acknowledged that being an NFL head coach means enduring speculation, embracing scrutiny, and understanding that opinions will always exist. What he has never done is allow that noise to dictate his direction. The Deshaun Elliott situation fits perfectly into this broader theme. It's another example of how the Steelers are operating with a now-first mentality. There is no guarantee Elliott returns. There is no promise of a Hollywood ending. But the fact that the door is even cracked open speaks to how the organization views this moment. They are not pacing themselves for tomorrow. They are pushing toward what is possible today, and that mindset flows directly from the top. If Elliott does make it back, it will test the depth, flexibility, and adaptability of the defense. Coaches will have to weigh trust against upside, continuity against impact. Those are good problems to have in January, and they are the kind of problems teams with real aspirations deal with. Again, none of this aligns with the idea of a franchise in transition at head coach. Ultimately, the Mike Tomlin conversation says as much about the modern NFL media cycle as it does about the Steelers themselves. Speculation fills gaps. Silence gets interpreted as uncertainty. Longevity gets mistaken for stagnation. But when you slow the conversation down and look at what is actually happening, the foundation remains intact. Tomlin is coaching. The players are responding. The organization is competing. As fans, you are allowed to question, debate, and demand more. That's part of what makes this fan base one of the most passionate in sports. But those conversations are strongest when they're built on reality, not assumption. Right now, the reality is that Mike Tomlin remains the heartbeat of this team, fully engaged in the grind, and focused on what the Steelers can still accomplish this season. Ultimately, the Mike Tomlin conversation says as much about the modern NFL media cycle as it does about the Steelers themselves. Speculation fills gaps. Silence gets interpreted as uncertainty. Longevity gets mistaken for stagnation. But when you slow the conversation down and look at what is actually happening,